So Grant, what would you say have been the biggest changes in marketing in the last 10 years?
God, that's a big question. Big changes in marketing. I think the biggest one is the development of people owning media. So I think what's happened now is that every single business in the world today essentially has their own media channels. So whether it's a website or whether they're using Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or any of the others that are available to them. And whereas traditionally your biggest channel to market was to basically rent the space of somebody else who had an audience, like TV advertising or magazine advertising or the postal service if you were doing a direct mail. Now every single business potentially has their own direct channel to market, which means that they can address their own audience specifically. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be doing some of the other activities, but they can address their own audience specifically and build direct relationships with those audiences. And what that means is every business essentially has become a media entity. So I say to companies, you might be an accountancy firm or a recruitment company or a manufacturing business, but you're also a media business.
Of course.
And then what it's also done is for companies that wouldn't traditionally have had direct relationships with customers, they now do. So you take a company like Cadbury's, right? Traditionally, the only relationship they'd have had with their customers would have been through distribution, whether it's Asda's or Waitrose or a newsagent or wherever else you buy the product. Today, you can go on their website and order direct from them. You know, hampers of chocolates and send them as gifts and everything. So now, increasingly, they have a direct-to-consumer operation where they have a direct channel to market, which for a company like them, when you think the price of a dairy milk or something, wouldn't have been practical. So it's opened up opportunities for relationships with customers, to understand customers in a deeper way and to engage customers. And I would think if you talk about shifts, because we've seen that mature significantly over the last decade or so, I think that's probably the most significant shift for businesses.
The implications for business leaders are quite huge, aren't they? Because, as you say, they run their own business, manufacturing widgets, whatever, but they also now have to consider, I've got a media business I'm running as well, and all the complexity of that. And most business leaders, they wouldn't know where to start in running a media business if they haven't been doing it.
The implications are enormous, like you've said, because if you think, you know, no one knows, you know, I'm not a futurist. We don't know where it's going to go in the next 10 or 15 years. But I think what we can all safely say is it's not going to get less digital. So on that basis, your ability to engage an audience through a digital lens and be able to entice that audience really will affect your commercial success. And of course, many businesses might be brilliant at what they do, and they might even be good traditional marketing businesses, but they're not used to running a media entity. And what's grown up is, if you think about the old days of websites, and dare I say it, social media as well, it was quite static. You know, someone would write something compelling on Facebook. Someone would write something compelling on their website. But today, the question is, how do I give an experience via those mediums? And people don't do it enough because they're, you know, you've got lots of opportunity. You've got video, you've got music, you've got imagery that you're using, and not just, you know, so you've got things like chatbots, which with the, you know, with the sophisticated AI, those are getting pretty good now as well. So they can engage with the business in some level. So it's, how do I deepen that experience so I would already create something special before I get an email inquiry or I get a face-to-face? Because I get so many business leaders that say, if we just get the leads into the business, when you get me in front of the customer, I can convert, I can do it, right? And the problem is, if you don't, in the old days, the website was kind of a credibility thing. I just check they're okay before I... All right. Now, if you can't deliver some sort of experience that's a bit richer than this is what we do and we've been established for 50 years, if you can't deliver that, you don't get the email, you don't get the phone call, they've gone somewhere else. We've all become attention poor because we are so busy with information. So if you think about, you know, just think about an average human being. an average human being there'd be 4 channels into that human being potentially. There'd be, you could write to them at work, you could write to them at home, you could call them at work, you can call them at home.
Yeah.
Right? Now you think today, channels into an average human being, you can still write to them at home and write to them at work and call them at home and call them at work. But now you can obviously call them on their mobile and you can text them. And most people are on some sort of social media. So they might get Instagram messages or Facebook messages or whatever else. And then, the majority of people are on some sort of messaging service like WhatsApp or whatever else. So the average person now and then of course there's email, right? So the average person now is probably dealing with 5, 6, 7 channels into them, all 24/7, because we get emails at all time of the day.
Yes.
But they've only got the same 24 hours a day, 7 days in a week that 3 generations ago we had when we were only dealing with 4 channels, which were much more static. And if you weren't at home, they couldn't leave a message.
Yeah.
So they were none the wiser. Of course, nowadays you get an email and you've got to deal with it at some point.
Yes.
So we are far more attention poor and far more overloaded with information, which means that the impact of a communication, and that's the word I always use to measure it. How impactful is it? If it isn't impactful,
are they engaging with it?
It doesn't cut through.
And I guess that's the measure, isn't it? It's return on engagement. I've heard you talk about before, rather than return on investment in terms of your marketing. It's are you engaging your audience and tracking that?
Yeah, and if you don't engage, you don't get to next base.
That's a big change.